number one is education. That's what I love to do. Unfortunately, I don't get to do it enough. It does take a lot of time, and it takes people spreading the word to get more people out to these events. I also speak to the kids. I'm in the schools when I'm invited. I can speak to Girl Scout groups, Boy Scouts, church groups, anything like that. You can go onto our website and request a presentation for any of those groups in the New River Valley. I also do undercover chatting. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm going to have you guess a range of how old you think I am. So who here thinks I'm in my 20s? 30s? I just think I'm old.
No.
Okay, so who thinks I'm in my 20s? Raise your hand. Who thinks I'm in my 20s? Who thinks I'm in my 30s? Okay, who thinks I'm in my 40s and 50s? Okay, that's good. So I play that with the kids, and most of the time the kids have quite of a different perspective on age, and when they look at people, and they always think that I'm in my 20s and 30s, and I love them for it. There's some smart alecks that think I might be in my 40s, but I am 42. So for the kids, when they're meeting strangers online or people they think they know their ages because they're seeing them in a video, this shows them that they need to add about 15 to 20 years to the age of the person that they say how old they are. So if they say they're 16 and they met them online, they're probably in their 30s because they live at home. So what I do is I chat online undercover, and I try to tell the kids it's because I look so young and play that trick. And then the main mission of that is to prevent the child predators from getting to our children here in the community as best as I can. Another part of my job is I work peer-to-peer file sharing. Does anybody know what file sharing means? So remember Napster when that came out and people were downloading music illegally and a lot of the artists were getting upset about it? Well, how they were downloading that music is because someone purchased that music and then they were sharing it. So it wasn't on the internet, it was just through programs that were, everybody that was on Napster was sharing whatever music or videos that they had, and so bypassing the rights of the artists for people to purchase it. Now that's how child predators share and exchange images of child pornography. It's through these software, so it bypasses the internet and it goes from computer to computer. The next part of my job is I do forensic downloads of all the devices. So any kind of phones, tablets, computers that are being used in these cases with our kids. I have a $13,000 computer in the office with expensive software that can retrieve deleted information and things, everything, all the data off of the devices. So a lot of the kids are like, it's been deleted. Basically what the delete button does is makes it so it disappears where you can't see it, but it's still stored on the device in a space that they can't really access. Sometimes when it comes to the computers and the predators, I'm able to, like, they know what they're doing. They're trying to hide it from the naked eye, but I'm able to retrieve all that. And we'll explain a little bit why that's important to when it comes to our children, to the peer-to-peer. And then the last part is that sometimes I have to work the child abuse cases as well. In our unit, there's one other investigator who does just the child abuse and family abuse, but when he gets really slammed, then it will roll into my job as well. So that's a little bit about what I do. So any questions on that? So we'll get started with the presentation, and we're going to start with a video.
I can't stop thinking about you. I know you've been waiting for this for a while. I want to take these things special.
it's just something I want you guys to think about as we move through this presentation, because as parents, as guardians, and aunts, uncles, anybody that cares for children, I'm here to say that it's our responsibility as parents and guardians to know what our children are doing online. It's not up to them. It's not their responsibility to make good choices, though we will educate them and we will communicate that with them. But as they are children, it is the parents and the guardians' responsibility, bottom line. Just last week, I received a call from an ex-police officer asking me what to do because his 12-year-old was on a teen chat room and now this person was texting her. And I said, you just said she's 12, so she shouldn't be on a teen chat room because she's not a teen. So then I asked, what kind of social media is she using? And he asks her in the background, and she's listing off these. I go, you have to be 13. You can't even be on these social media sites without until you're 13, and she's 12. He's like, well, I don't really know how all this works. And I said, I get it, but you're not going to give your child a car before you know how to drive it or before they know how to drive it. So why are you giving them a computer that they can walk around with not knowing how it works? And so my presentations are going to be geared around that we have to step up and be the parents and not, always be involved in what's going on, especially online, in their devices, and their life, because that's how our kids are living their lives, is online, bottom line. So we're going to talk about not just phones, but laptops. I mean, they're all getting Chromebooks now. We have MP3 players, which aren't used as much, gaming devices. So we have kids that are on Minecraft or Fortnite. I think that's the newest one that my son wants. And I mean, they can chat, and a lot of times parents are giving them devices like the Switch or the DS something that you can go online and they can chat to strangers if the parents aren't putting on the privacy settings. Also the tablets and the Kindles. People think, oh, it's just a Kindle, they can read books. No, that accesses the internet. Anything that has Wi-Fi is open to them becoming victims of somebody online. So what are your kids doing online? So you have two. What do they use the internet for?
Watching videos and playing games with their friends.
And what games are they playing?
Well, Fortnite is one.
And do they have privacy settings, or are they open to the internet to play with friends?
Their privacy.
Okay. And you guys, do you have younger ones?
This is our granddaughter,
Okay.
and we're here.
To make sure you.
Yeah, she's 20,
Okay.
and she uses her tablet or her iPad all the time.
Okay.
So you can direct questions to her.
But you're her guardians?
Yeah, she lives
Okay.
with us.
Okay. Can you live on your own? Can you or do you have an intellectual disability where you're, okay. So if she has that disability, it's still on you guys, okay? So yes, she's 20, but it's still your responsibility because she can't make those decisions. I know it's hard to think, well, you put an age to them and you're going to expect them to have that, but they just don't. Same with our kids. Our kids, like, I have a nephew who is 16 and he's 6'3", 250 pounds. And it's easy to think he's not a kid because he's already making adult decisions like colleges and scholarships and all of that. But he's still kid mentality. So when he's talking to somebody online and mom's calling me saying, you're never going to guess what your nephew's doing, and I'm like, I'm actually not surprised, because if you're not monitoring it, that's what 16-year-olds do. And so it's really hard to, get in the mindset that we are always going to be responsible until they are, state where they can make their own decisions, and they're required to. In that same situation, my brother, who is the dad of my nephew, so he's my brother, he called me and asked me advice about it, and he's like, well, can I go through his phone? I mean, if you think about it, because we were brought up privacy, you had a diary, and my mom taught us that you respected your siblings' privacy. And I said, Chuck, it's not about that anymore. It's not a diary. This is life online that is exposed to everybody. There is no privacy anymore. And so you absolutely have to go through his phone if you want to keep him safe. And keep him from being exposed to things that you don't want him exposed to. Because there's a lot out there. So if you think about all of the social media that the kids are using, so what kind of social media is a 13-year-old using?
He does not have a Facebook. He does have a Snapchat. He never put me. He doesn't post because I go on his phone.
Okay. But does he?
See where he's posting and who I sometimes open them up from who they're coming from.
Oh, good. Yep.
Just so people listen.
Yeah. So Snapchat, I will say, is the worst app for kids to have.
Yeah.
Nobody should have an app that has pictures that delete in 10 seconds because they're most likely pictures that nobody else can see. And I talk to the kids about that. I'm like, if that's a picture that you wouldn't want your grandmother to see, then you probably shouldn't be posting it anywhere because once you do, there's nothing you can do about it. They don't delete. I can still retrieve them. And there are so many different third-party apps out there that can retrieve them automatically and doesn't tell the other person. So when it first came out, people could take a screenshot of it and it would tell the sender that a screenshot was created. Well, not anymore. So now there's just apps that automatically collect those pictures and it doesn't talk to Snapchat. So a lot of the kids are now using Instagram because the parents are on Facebook. And that one's, I mean, it's fairly safe, but they also have a direct message. So they have private messaging behind the scenes, and they have disappearing pictures as well, and videos just like Snapchat. But for the most part, like law enforcement friendly, I can get a lot of information from Instagram and Facebook. YouTube, the problem with YouTube is with our kids watching the videos is that it can easily steer, like it has that revolving the next video, and if you don't hit cancel, it automatically loads that next video. It's easy to mix in pornography, adult pornography, inside videos that are appropriate because they know that it'll expose the kids to them. They want to expose kids to pornography so it breaks that stigma and it becomes more comfortable for the kids to talk about. Any other apps that you guys can think of that, what are you using?
I barely use Facebook anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I have Instagram, but my profile is private.
Okay, perfect. That's awesome. So, what other apps are you seeing?
All
Yeah. So, and that's from like people coming in and just talking to families. Yeah, and there's some that most of us don't even know about. So we have to think about, what are they being exposed to? Not only are we worried about who they're talking to, but the content they're seeing. Is it violent? Is it sexual in nature? Are they putting out their privacy? Are they sharing things that they're not supposed to? Sexting. So sexting is sending naked images, 18 years or under 18 years, any naked image that's sent through messages. Sexual solicitation, which is also known as sextortion, which we'll talk about a little bit, and that's really what that first video was about. That's sextortion. That's basically extorting them to send more images where they will expose them to either their friends, church group, family, whoever it is that that threatens them. And then cyberbullying. And you can talk to your kids at any age. So I already started showing my son, who's 6, some videos using NetSmarts. So this presentation is put on by NetSmarts. So you can just go to netsmarts.org. If you see it, it ends with a Z. And they have it all the way from the really young kids, all the way, and then there's a middle section for tweens, and then there's stuff for teens. So it's very age appropriate. And we were watching a video, and it was about passwords, and it was like a cartoon for my little guy talking about passwords. And then one night, my husband was like, "What's your password for the Xfinity?" He's like, "I can't log in." And so I give it to him, and Brody's like, "You can give your password, Mommy." You know, like he remembered the video from like 2 months ago. And I'm like, "You're right, but there's certain circumstances you can give it to your husband." So talking about just basic etiquette online is a really great start for young kids, the passwords. And then when you get a little bit older, the cyberbullying and sexting and inappropriate material, because sometimes kids just don't think like what they're putting out there and why it would be inappropriate. And there's handouts, everything in on that website for all ages. And of course, we don't want young kids being exposed to pornography. I have been getting devices like tablets, cell phones from 9-year-olds, and it's unusual for me not to find pornography. There's pornography in almost every device that I get, as young as 9. And I had an 8-year-old exposed. So that is just open. So you can't control what they're typing every time they're typing something. So there's so many different words that are kid related that if they misspell it by one letter, it'll go to pornography. And that's on purpose. Of course, the violence, any kind of hate speech, and illegal behavior like drug activity. There's a lot of that being posted that they think, well, they're smoking weed on this video, can't you just go and bust them? Unfortunately, like law enforcement, that's not so easy because there's so much to that video, and then putting them into that place and time with the drugs and knowing exactly what it was. I mean, you have to have the evidence, you just have a video. So sometimes it can be deceiving. And of course, when it comes to talking to your kids, just start the communication young. If you guys have friends with younger kids, start it young, keep it open. A lot of the times kids, when I talk to them, I ask them, like, who here has like had an argument with their parents over something that's going on online? And most of them raise their hand, and it's because the parents don't understand what the heck they're talking about, basically, because we weren't brought up with these devices. We're still learning as we go, and I think I just have the advantage because of my position, and I have a lot of curiosity in what I use the apps and the electronics for, so I'm always staying up to date. But a lot of it I learned from the kids, because every time I give a presentation, I'm like, what are you guys using that's not up here? And so they'll tell me, and I'm like, ooh, I've never heard of that one, and I'll write it down, and I'm like, I'm gonna check that one out later. And then I just use it. I use it to my advantage, and I'll start using it in an undercover role to see how many, predators are on there, and to see if it's appropriate for the kids. And if not, then I educate the parents on that the next time around. And of course, talk about like what they should do when these things arise, like when they are faced with inappropriate content, or if they have somebody approaching them, give them steps to take. That's basically what they need, it's just steps. Just like we give them if it was like stranger danger back in the day, we talked about like if somebody came up to you and said, come help me look for a puppy, you gave them an out, you gave them ways to get out of that situation. And so that's the same thing when it comes to online activity. So some of the things like you want to teach them like what isn't appropriate, like what don't you post. A lot of the kids were seeing, there's a video that I didn't put in here, but there's a video of a kid that, he had a scholarship, full ride, for baseball or swimming, and then they won like state championship. All his friends threw a party, he went to the party, he decided to film people being silly, and when he was filming, he started having a couple drinks and he posted it. And thinking that it was just going to certain people, he had posted it to everybody. And so then not only did he get in trouble at school with his parents, but he lost his scholarship because colleges and jobs look at our online activity, because that really shows our character on and offline, basically. So just keep that as an open communication. This is a big thing that we don't talk about, and this is still new, is have these expectations when it comes to online activity. Have the contracts. There are so many contracts out there, and actually I was just given the opportunity to participate on this online contract. So if you know parents that want to create a contract with their kids, they can come to the office and we can set up, or they can call me when we set up a time, and it's all online, and basically they set up a contract with their kids. If the kids agree to it, then it sends them educational videos to watch, and once they've watched them and did the assignments, then they can have the device. So it's really kind of innovative. We're going to start using it as like a form of discipline instead of when they go into the court system, instead of, we'll charge them, but instead of them being, it can be under advisement as long as they do this educational video. So we're utilizing that. I've just started talking with the Commonwealth attorneys using that. Because we're not here to give our kids records, but at the same time, they have to understand that there's consequences to their actions. And then, talk about online privacy, especially when it comes to like their social media, if their account is open, if they're accepting friend requests from people they don't know, all sorts of things that you just want to make sure you guys go over. Of course, personal information, I ask the kids a lot of times when I go to the schools, I'm like, okay, who here, when they do have Facebook, I'm like, okay, who here puts out where they live? And most of the kids are like, no. And then I'm like, okay, who here puts what school they go to? Sometimes that's on there, but what they don't realize is that they're in a hoodie with their school mascot on there. So I bring that up. Emails, have they shared emails? Some kids, when Facebook first came out, they were putting their cell phone numbers listed on there. And that helps kind of track a little bit. But then our kids are sharing passwords. So our kids are growing up not trusting anybody. They don't trust their boyfriend or girlfriend. And I just received a phone where he had 4 different passwords for ex-girlfriends. Because they'll start dating and they don't trust them, and so they make them give a password so they can monitor their stuff. Now the problem we run into, I had a boyfriend and an ex-girlfriend who still had his password. New girlfriend sends a naked image to boyfriend. Ex-girlfriend goes in, grabs the image, shares it with a group of other girls that are in a group kick messenger, and then those girls spread it out. And it was a mess. I had to retrieve probably about 6 phones and call tons of parents because not every phone could I even track how many people had access to that picture. And so it just shows you how fast it can spread. And so passwords, the only person the kids that should be giving their password to are their parents. And that's it. Of course, you can share the rest of identity theft, the online scams, and hacking. I tell most people Facebook does not get hacked. Like I literally, it might now. It's a little bit more crazy now, but I literally had the same password. I think I got the account in 2003 or 2003, I think. Well, I initially was so against Facebook and MySpace, and I was like, no, it's terrible. But then when I started wanting to educate kids about it, I'm like, oh, I guess I better learn how to do this stuff. So I went on, and I had the same password up until last year. And nobody hacked into it. And I tell the kids, I'm like, there's no hacking if you giving your password out to people. Or you're just you're adding people that you shouldn't be adding because they're a bunch of spam bots. And that's going on a lot right now. Now I think I've changed my password 4 times in the last month because they're seeing activity. Like Facebook is protecting us because they're seeing really crazy activity. Again, just share established rules. Teach them what they should be reporting on as well. Like if they're seeing their friends doing stuff, like have that part of the conversation. Let's talk about about sexting. A lot of the kids, they definitely get really uncomfortable when I talk about this. In Virginia, we've actually stopped using the term sexting because that kind of sounds sexy or glamorous, and really it's not. So we call it self-victimization. Because every time a child takes a naked image of themselves and then sends it to somebody else, and then somebody else sees it, then they're being re-victimized, and they're the ones that created that victimization. And you can see the statistics. It's 2.5% of teens have sex. I would say it's higher than that, but and then 7% say that they have received a sex, and a lot of the kids are like, they don't know what to do when they receive it, and so they just delete it or don't tell anybody. But I'm going into the schools and I tell them that they still need to tell, mainly because if they're receiving the images, then and they're not reporting it, then most likely that person is sending it to like 7 other of their friends, and maybe somebody will feel pressured to send one back. And so that would protect other people if they tell on them. And these are some of the reasons that they're sexting. I haven't really said that nobody's ever said it's funny. Maybe that's more of a boy thing, because a girl thing is, I've never had them say that. To impress a crush, to share with a boyfriend or girlfriend, what I am seeing is that it's peer pressure. I am seeing the chats behind it. A lot of it is the peer pressure. The boyfriend or girlfriend will say they'll break up with them if they don't send it. I actually had a girl say that she was scared, and I said, I mean, scared of what? Like, was he gonna harm you? No, that I didn't know what he would say about me if I didn't send it. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I remember growing up and I was worried about, what they would say because, I don't know, like if I wore the wrong outfit or something. Like, I wasn't worried about showing naked parts and worrying about it. It was just kind of reverse to what we grew up with, I think. And so it's really interesting to get their mentality of what's going on online. And this gives you an idea of how the images, especially a lot of the cases that I work inside of our schools, how fast it can spread. It's hard to see that.
Check this out. Whoa! Oh man! Let me send that to you. I'm not gonna send it to you.
That's definitely the message that we send to the kids that, once it's out there, there's nothing, we can't take it back. And talking about what I do with the peer-to-peer file sharing, that's where I see these images. So I can monitor images based off of them being identified as images of child pornography. So once an officer identifies them, we actually send that image to the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, and it goes into this database. And it gets assigned what's called a hash value. So a hash value is just a really long algorithm of letters and numbers, but it's a DNA stamp for that picture. And with that, we can monitor IP addresses that are sharing those images. So the images that I'm seeing are, of course, not from like last year or even 5 years ago. It's mainly like 20 or 30 years ago. Those are kids that were being molested, raped, and being filmed and photographed without their permission. Now our kids are creating their own images, and that is going into the same database. Today, I actually was looking at, so basically when I receive downloads from these IP addresses, so we have undercover computers that that are playing along with the other predators, and basically they'll send me some of their own downloads off of their computer, and the ones that I receive, I have to observe them, of course, so I can testify to getting warrants. And just today I decided, let me just look at these videos. I'd had them for a while. I'm like, I'm finishing up this report. And I was actually surprised to see that they're from 2010. So really not that long ago. Most of the ones I see are really outdated, I would say from like the 80s or 90s. And so 2010, 8 years ago, and they were 8-year-olds on webcams in their homes. They were chatting with somebody and being told what to do, and they were doing it at 8 years old. And the thing to think about now, our 8-year-olds are way more advanced now than they were 10 years ago, or 8 years ago. And so these, I couldn't even believe it. So we used to train our kids or our parents not to have laptops in our bedrooms. That was like the thing, like you don't have computers in the bedrooms. It needs to be in a community area where everybody's passing through. You really didn't have any privacy with it. Parents are letting kids in the rooms and in the bathrooms with their cell phones, which is way worse. So we are educating parents to always have that phone on you. One of the videos, the girl, it was 3 in the morning, and she's even saying, it's 3 in the morning. She's taking the clothes off because somebody told her to. And the other 8-year-old used a toothbrush because on her privates because she was told to. So to think about, I'm seeing 8-year-olds like on the app that we were talking about, TikTok, which is like the Musical.ly app. I'm seeing these 8-year-olds that are pretty talented on these apps. Like I'm having to go to YouTube, like how do I do this? And it's an 8 to 10-year-old. I couldn't figure out how to use slime. I couldn't make the slime with the glue. I made one and it was terrible. I was like, I turned it on and it's an 8-year-old teaching me how to make slime. So our kids now are so more advanced. If we allow them access, they don't understand the ramifications of what can happen if they have privacy with these phones. Of course, we talk about the consequences. And so many times I talk to the kids, but again, their brain is not fully developed to understand the ramifications of all these consequences. So the biggest one for them is like humiliation, just being embarrassed. So taking that last video, the one girl that sent that, can you imagine her going to school after that? Everybody's seeing it. There used to be a PSA commercial where the girl took a picture in her bikini, and she felt really proud of the picture. And so she put it up on the bulletin board at school. Well, then she heard some people talking about it, and it really made her feel bad about herself. So she went up and she just ripped the picture down. Well, then later on, she walked through the hallway and she saw the picture back up. And she's like, well, that's weird. I thought, so she pulls it back down. Then something else is going on at school, and like people are literally talking about it. She could hear people chattering, and she comes back through and she sees that picture and she just keeps grabbing it. It just keeps popping up. She grabs it, pops up, grabs it, and she's like freaking out, like can't get it to go away. And she finally just leaves crying. Well, at the end of the commercial, they have the janitor come by and grab the picture. So it just shows you that that picture, once it's out, there's nothing we can do. I can just monitor it. So when I do get cases of children sharing naked images with each other, I grab the devices, I have to pull that picture off of there. So I tell the kids, I go, if this happens in school, think about all the people that are going to see it. Not only the person you sent it to, then maybe people are going to start talking about it in school. So the teacher's going to want to know what they're talking about. The teacher sees it, they're going to report it to the principal, and then the principal's going to call the SRO, and then the SRO is going to call me because I'm the only one that does the downloads in the whole New River Valley. So think about all the people, and then the parents. Everybody's going to see your naked image. So if it's not something that you wouldn't want your grandmother to see again, then don't take it, don't send it. We also have the bullying that comes from it, blackmail through the sextortion, and consequences at school, suspension, and then also, what a lot of kids don't understand is that it's against the law. So in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we do not discriminate against the age of the person that manufactures child pornography. So if a child is taking a naked picture of themselves, they are guilty of a felony manufacturing child pornography. If they send it, it's another felony of distribution. And then if they receive it, or if it's the person that's asking for it, it's another felony of possession. And we have charged in the Commonwealth. It's not something that we want to make a practice, but the children have to know that that is a consequence that can happen, that it doesn't matter how old they are. And if another child is asking for a naked picture of another child, then we can charge them with that too. So you just want to make sure that as a parent, that this is coming from you guys too, not just from the big bad police officer or little bad police officer, that it comes from the parent's mouth along with law enforcement. So it needs to be like a joint effort that we're doing this all together, because that's the whole point. Like, we're in it together. I like to educate the parents most of the time before I educate the kids, so when the kids come home, they can have a conversation about my presentation. And then it becomes something that is just common or comfortable to talk about. Discuss what's healthy when it comes to relationships, especially when it comes to sexual relationships, because they have a really obscured vision of what that looks like, because they're going off of TV, and that's not real. It's just not real. Talk about ways, how it can spread, like I talked about, even being in that group chat. Like, that's real. It was in a group chat, and then it got spread out, and then it was out of control from there. And of course, that they can address it. The biggest thing that kids say is, like, I don't want them to be mad at me, but we can always go back to Nicole's situation, and that will be something that we will relate to from here on out, now that it's over, is that if somebody knew about that relationship that she had, if they would have told, would she still be here? Because she definitely was at my presentation. She was at